All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Sinclair Skinner, and wow, man. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that felt good. Yeah, thank you. Wanted to introduce someone we've been working with at BitMari for a few years now. And in the blockchain space, a few years is like 30 years in any other thing. As a startup, many of you guys know that it's definitely sometimes difficult to build out certain infrastructure. Anybody who's doing building understands the issues like KYC and AML and certain things that we have to do for compliance. And finding partners that are willing to work together to help you do what you're doing and provide solutions in your community. We've always been clear that our focus is the Black community and Pan-African community, and Uphold has been very supportive of that vision and really helped with the infrastructure in order for us to build out this space. And I thought it would be apropos to have them to come and discuss what they've done with other startups to help build this ecosystem. They're starting their founding story to give a context, and actually how are they expanding and building. Of course, that being contextual, Robbin's been very helpful. At the end of the day, people might finance companies, but it's really people. And what we're doing here is actually trying to leverage the minds of as many people as possible to help us solve problems in our communities. And that's very important, that the focus of this is to see how we can take this technology and use it in a way that alleviates issues such as racism, colonialism, and all the things that we face, and to have allies that are able to leverage their technology. And we all know this is still business. Everyone is doing this in order to make sure there's a proper return on investment. But in doing that, we can actually touch people and do some good. And we wanted to make sure that we were able to discuss some of those things and make sure that everybody in this room and everyone who's watching us on live stream can benefit from companies that have taken steps to help us build this space. Without further ado, I'd at least like Robbin kind of start off with the Uphold story and background to give some context.
Very good, and thanks for having me, Sinclair.
No doubt.
I guess I'll start with the vision of Uphold. It was started by a guy by the name of Halsey Minor. Halsey started a company in the first .com boom called CNET, and then also was one of the founders of Salesforce. And his vision was pretty simple, and we're not going to get there right away, but this is the idea, is that anybody with a mobile phone should be able to access their digital value or their value, whether it be dollars or gold or cryptocurrency, even equities, easily on their mobile device anywhere in the world instantly and as close to free as possible, which in the United States, might not seem crazy, right? Because you've actually got Venmo and kind of moving money around in the United States seems like, okay, well that's sort of been figured out by the current financial institutions. But when you go outside the United States, it's a totally different deal where people don't necessarily trust their banks, where most people aren't banked, but have funds and are dealing primarily in cash and so forth. So in order to meet this vision, basically what we've built at Uphold is a platform where anybody can come on, whether it's a consumer or a business, and they can hold multiple fiat currencies, whether it be dollars, Kenyan shilling, euros, what have you. We support I think 25 different fiat currencies, and then we have the cryptocurrencies. We support most of the the major cryptocurrencies, and we're adding more. And there's even the notion of actually holding gold, silver, and other commodities. We're also adding equities, so you could, theoretically be in Africa, and you could load Bitcoin onto our system and buy some shares of Apple stock, which has never been done before. So in order to create such a thing, it sounds kind of basic, but it actually, it does involve kind of the bridging of this new world of cryptocurrency, which is somewhat of a free-for-all, and the current world of banking and regulations and so forth. So we spent our first couple of years, and why many people probably haven't heard of Uphold is because we've just been in the trenches building out this, really rock-solid regulatory coverage with licensing and so forth. So we're licensed and regulated in the United States, in Europe, in Mexico, and we're adding more. And in the countries that we serve that aren't regulated, all that means is that we support users in 180 different countries. And that just means that we don't have the onboarding, offboarding in the banks quite yet. So if I lived in Zimbabwe, we have a partnership which allows for onboarding and offboarding because they have the licensing to do so in Zimbabwe. But in the United States and in Europe, we have the licensing. So somebody in the United States could load money onto our platform through their bank and then send it through BitMarie to their friends or family, let's say in Zimbabwe. So that's basically our model. And how's that? Did I do a pretty good job?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Okay, cool.
You brought up the regulatory framework, and I think as many people hear about, the SEC, FinCEN, they hear a lot of these alphabets and the way that's going to influence cryptocurrency, influence the industry. What do you think are key takeaways that we should be keeping a note of?
Sure. So, and I'm not sure if you guys have covered this yet, but in addition to the major cryptocurrencies, the ones you've heard of, Bitcoin, Ethereum, et cetera, there's obviously a whole slew of these utility tokens. I think if you go to crypto market cap, you'll see there's something like 1,800 different cryptocurrencies and utility tokens. What's a utility token? A utility token is just it's a cryptocurrency with a very specific use case, like a reason for having it. And what's happened is, in addition to this whole blossoming of cryptocurrency and blockchain, et cetera, there's been the whole blossoming of these utility tokens. And where the SEC has gotten involved is, first of all, not all of these utility tokens are, totally legit, and some are, effectively, while they could be legit and have the best, possible intentions, they're a very risky investment, right? Because you got a lot of people that are just speculating on what might be, and they haven't even developed their projects yet. So we're seeing this all over the industry where, a company has a project and they're out marketing it and raising money for their coin, which is their utility token. Basically, that means money into their coffers for their development of their project, but they may not actually have anything on the market yet. So from an SEC standpoint, they're more just, frankly, protecting the consumer in that case. And you're starting to see a real clamp down on, hopefully getting rid of a lot of the BS type of projects, and there'll be more scrutiny there. So I actually think it's not a bad thing. I mean, regulation, I don't like regulation, but it can be good.
Right, it's a blockchain conference. Come on, Robbin.
Any regulators?
Come on, man. We got to, it is DC though. I know you're hypersensitive. We got to be clear.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good segue into looking at different exchanges and how many of these tokens are trying to be listed on different exchanges. When you look at Uphold and the variety of tokens that you've been able to list, and in many ways, I think you guys have been conservative in the sense that you've tried to make sure that you had reputable tokens. What would you say are some of the key things that might be useful in reviewing how do you determine who gets listed or not?
Sure. I mean, the number one thing is do we really believe in the project? I mean, I can tell you there are so many projects that we talk to that are going to be the next big thing. So in a sense, you look at the project like an investor would look at a new business. What's their track record? Do they already have customers? Do you really believe in the use case? The best example of a utility token that I think, frankly, is out there today is Brave and the BAT, the B-A-T, the Basic Attention token. And I can tell you a little bit about that and how we work with them, just to give sort of an example. So Brave is a browser, a web and mobile browser, and basically it blocks all adware. And it was started by a guy named Brendan Eich. Brendan Eich was the founder of Mozilla Firefox, so he's got a really good background in terms of browsers. He also invented JavaScript, so he's no dummy. Venture-backed, 5 million plus downloads, so they already have traction. And basically, what they're doing is they're trying to reinvent the way that advertising works on the internet, where they block the advertising, so it's a better user experience for the consumer. It actually your mobile browser and your web browser run significantly faster, so that's the benefit to the consumer. And then what they do is they get advertisers to pay into more targeted advertising. So the consumer who downloads the browser can say, oh yeah, I'm interested in XYZ, and I'll be happy to view a video, if it fits with the things that I'm interested in. In doing so, they receive a reward in terms of this basic attention token. So there's a reward to the consumer and then a reward to the website. So that's how the economics are working on the sort of blocking the advertising as we know it today. In order to make that work, there's a lot of value that's going back and forth. I listened to the last, this whole internet of value, right? So the value is going from the advertiser to the consumer who's viewing the ad, to the website who's presenting the ad. And so think about all the different websites, you've got millions of different websites and millions of different users, and there has to be sort of this instantaneous flow of value in terms of watching the ads, et cetera. So it kind of doesn't work that it would just meld into traditional financial services, right? Like how would that work for me if I was viewing it, receiving actual value through the financial system today would be very difficult and expensive. So that's why they have the token, and it totally makes sense. At the end of the day, though, to turn that token into something that you or I would use to pay our bills or whatever, you're going to want it in dollars. At least that's what we believe today, right? Or if we live in the United States, we want it in dollars. If we live in Europe, you want it in euros, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what Uphold does. So we are the bridge between these new utility tokens and then the basic financial system. So when somebody says, oh, I want to turn those BATs into dollars, they have to go to our site, they have to go through our KYC, AML, and then and we're doing transaction monitoring, et cetera, et cetera. I see somebody shaking their head back there. So there's the notion of if you want the money in your bank, you gotta follow the rules. So we are a facilitator for that. I believe firmly for this stuff to really adopt and be mass market, you're going to have to bridge the gap between cryptocurrency and regular money today. Eventually, great. We'd love to get there where, just dealing in BAT. But think about it. If there's a use case for BAT and there's a use case for, let's say, 100 other utility tokens, how does one person make all of that stuff sync up? Are they going out to other, okay, somebody's raising their hand. I almost wanted to challenge, because I really believe so strongly that there needs to be this level of ease of use for the consumer. Otherwise, we're all just talking to ourselves. That's my take.
Yeah, and it seems like you were even getting to a point where you're talking about interoperability and how do we get these things to work together. Mm-hmm. I think, we're in a room where we're really focused like a laser on how do we leverage everything you just said. We're dealing with payday lenders in our community, redlining. There's so many things that are keeping us away from access to financial systems. So I think in a real way, what do you see in the future that can increase user adoption to make it so that we don't have to rely exclusively on a legacy system that hasn't been so friendly, to put it mildly? Am I being mild? Yeah, I can go, but we're going to put it mildly. What is Uphold? Because I think the things that you're doing now is connecting, like you said, is important. What are you guys doing, moving forward to better do that, to be helpful?
Sure. So one is what I was just talking about in terms of, I truly believe that for any of this to work, right, that there needs to be we need market adoption. We need people to use this, and believe me, I truly believe in my heart that this movement is going to be transformative. But it has to. I mean, if you go look at CoinMarketCap and you're following this stuff, I challenge you to give me a good list of the ones that are actually doing real world transactions, and we need to be in a world of we need to cross over from early adopter interest into mass adoption. And I think to do that, you're going to have have real world transactions, and I think Uphold helps in that by demystifying it and making it connect to the real world. So that's one. And then separate from that, so for that, Sinclair, we're betting on the fact that by partnering with the right new utility tokens that will actually have adoption, like Brave, as an example, that we're going to help propel the industry forward. So that's one. And then secondarily, we do have close to 1 million users across the globe that have signed up for Uphold and are using us in a variety of ways. So we have a large following in Latin America, as an example. In Latin America, it is a different deal we're seeing than in the United States. In certain countries like Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina, we're being used as almost like a PayPal, where somebody can receive money and then actually store that value like they would a bank. So, if you live in Venezuela, you're not that psyched to put your money in the Venezuelan local currency and keep in the bank. One, it's difficult to get it out. Two, it's devaluing. So the notion of, I work in Venezuela and I want to get paid, but I want to get paid and I want to keep it in dollars or gold or Bitcoin, because I think that that's a better currency than my home currency. That's something that we're seeing. So I think, to answer your question, what we want to do is, first of all, we are not U.S. focused or U.S. centric. We see U.S. as a key market for us for onboarding and for, as an example, the Venezuelan. You have lots of U.S. companies that are paying Venezuelan freelancers, example, but our end consumer is really going to be, I think, the ones that are in most need of a better financial system. And so if we have users in Africa and Asia and as we do, and Venezuela, we can now start offering them things that they never were able to get before, through partnerships mainly. But I mentioned the equities thing. For that, we actually had to buy a broker-dealer. But again, I think that notion of now you can actually save and invest and potentially get credit in ways that we take for granted in the United States to be able to do elsewhere is kind of where we're headed.
I think that sounds helpful. I think having the alternatives, looking at the legacy system that has not been as productive in so many of our communities, looking at alternatives. Is that, I mean, we're looking at Venezuela and the crises, other places that, when we've seen other places that have had the same type of problems with their economies. Do you see in the United States anything on the horizon that might be helpful with adoption, or do you think it's necessity is the mother of invention? So sometimes
necessity is the mother of invention.
You find other issues. They say desperation is the father. Well, are there things that you see? It just might be, right. So if it's in the United States, or let me take it another direction. You guys are working on some things right now. Is there anything in the U.S. market that you see that people might be interested in learning about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd say, we're already seeing, the industry seeing a backlash even in the United States against banks, and we kind of benefit from that. So you've got lots of companies that, Robbin being an example, where they're basically U.S. focused, and they've got millions of users who simply just want a better experience than what the current financial system provides them. So I think there is a movement underway, even in the United States, for change, so I think that's an underlying movement as well.
All right. I think thank you, Robbin. I think that's been real good. Are we going to open up for any questions?
Let's go.
We got 2 questions, I think.
Hold on, I have a microphone. I'm going to be Oprah. Where's our first question? Right here, sir. Yes. Oh, I went to the school of how to do questions. I hold the mic.
Oh, good stuff, good stuff. Yes. Name is Jamari Peterson. You was talking a little bit about KYC and about identity to me. So how do you see Uphold helping facilitate identity management and its connection to cryptocurrencies, especially as we delve into ones doing lending or services that kind of require you to have a better understanding of who's using it, but still want to pseudo some level of pseudo-anonymity?
Yeah, so, I mean...
I have no words. That's for you, Robbin. That's for you.
What you doing, man?
You kind of slipped in the anonymity at the end there. Look, we're regulated. Any company that allows you to load funds through Visa, MasterCard, or through your bank is basically regulated in the United States, especially. The United States is maybe the worst in terms of regulation, or I shouldn't say the worst.
Right, we can come up with
Do you care? Are you guys regulators?
Yeah. Any regulators right now? Name
you guys are the best.
Love these
really
guys.
regulate.
Love these guys, right?
Yeah. The most stringent is the United States, and then you get the trickiness with the different states as well, where you need different licenses. So I mean, if you want that, and there are actually not that many companies in the United States that allow for the direct purchase of, let's say, we're the only company in the United States that allows for the direct purchase of XRP, as an example, which is the Ripple's digital currency. Coinbase doesn't do it. Okay, so in order to do that, you need to have the bank connectivity, which we have. You need to have the right licensing, which we have. You need to have the KYC AML, which we have. And then you need to actually have the blockchain connectivity, which we have. Another difference between us and like a Robinhood is when you buy, let's say, XRP or Bitcoin with a Robinhood, you're not actually fundamentally buying it. You're buying into a pool of it, I guess. With us, you're actually back to that original vision of being able to kind of send your digital assets wherever you want in the world. We're connected to the blockchain, and I'd say that it matters. We have, because we're the only one in the United States, we're seeing just a massive amount of people coming to us and purchasing, the XRP and holding it and then moving it from our system. But I think to answer your question, yes, we have it. The anonymity part of it, I know, is obviously a huge benefit and a strong movement. I don't know that that's going to be. I mean, maybe there'll be coins that just focus on that, and that's how you'll kind of get around that. But I don't know that there's going to be just an easy way, at least in the short term, to go from KYC to anonymity. I got to be able to learn how to say that word better.
Yeah, humbly. No, you did good. Where's Sister? We need some more of that Oprah Winfrey style.
I'm over here.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
on
ma'am.
it.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have
Hold
a
that
question,
mic.
sir?
Hey, how you doing? My name is Justin Redrick. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. And what I wanted to ask you, because Uphold, you do hold Litecoin and Bitcoin, correct?
Correct.
Do you see Uphold implementing the Lightning Network to your wallet anytime soon?
Yes.
That was easy.
No, but that's such a brilliant question.
Yeah.
That so many folks are still focusing on mining, while a lot of these tokens have, gone to a cloud mining phase where your ability to actually get a return on that becomes very difficult. And remember, when you hear the word mining, it's just like any other time. You're going to spend the same energy, the same electricity to not get something as if you got something. So there's no guarantee. This Lightning network, and we at BitMari did our first remittance transaction from Nigeria, from a node in Nigeria to our node in Zimbabwe on the Lightning network, is very early. This is a space that is not like where we went from CPUs, GPUs, to now these, cloud mining rigs. And there's a real opportunity in that Lightning space. And we're going to have some great speakers who got Lightning networks already set up in North Carolina, and they're going to share their information about how they're doing it. And it's good to hear Uphold is supporting the community with that second layer, because we can get into some conversations about the utility of mining, the utility of networks. And I think in a room like this with folks who are more than capable of having those conversations, I think is a very good opportunity to show the merits of mining and showing the merits of other ways of actually transacting and building an infrastructure.
So if you have questions about the Lightning Network, hold them until our Lightning panel. All right, our next question. This will be our second to last question.
Good morning. This is Talisha Shine from BCI. Just wanted to see what protocols or safeguards you have in place with regard to inherent biases when you're building your systems.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Black Blockchain Summit. This is what we do. That's what we do. Bring the questions.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Like, man, look, I thought this was all love, man. Hey, Robbie, supposed to say. So, sis, can you please repeat that question?
Yeah, please repeat that question. No,
Just wanted to see what safeguards or protocols that you have in place with inherent bias within the systems. You're building this as you're going. So we just want to see how are you taking that into being proactive and making sure that inherent bias isn't a part of that, or what are you doing to preclude that from your build?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I don't have, and I'd be BSing. That's why I'm asking.
I can help you with that.
Okay, well, can we meet after? Because I don't really.
Yes, Robbin, I think you all need to connect right after this. You need a little black girl magic in your life over
That's what we do. So and let me just say this. If people go to Twitter and put Satoshi is black, hashtag Satoshi is black, you got a question that we don't get to. Now, again, all of us have been to conferences where you don't get selected, or it seems like just certain people get selected. We're doing everything not to be that conference. We want everybody's voice to be heard. We still have the real constraints of the time that we have. So what we're trying to do is leverage the use of Satoshi is black as a way to congregate those questions, and then we'll be able to at least direct those questions and do our best to kind of highlight them and see if we can get people to give feedback. But even the tough questions, the easy, whatever you think they are, all these questions are what we're trying to use in this conference to solve our problems. So again, we have people from different backgrounds and different expertise. We're trying to leverage all our brains together to actually solve some old existing problems. So again, you're making us look good when you ask them questions like that, so good. But at the same time, I think it's great that we can actually say.
Yeah, if you have a system that does that, I'd love to learn about it. I don't.
All right, here. And
I'd also like to note the Hoover app is where we will be recording questions. And so please, I'd like you to register your question in the Hoover app.
I'm sorry. Yeah, do that.
I'm sorry, I'm all on the court. I'm going to take this one last question. We're going to take a break. We will have an option to do another quick Q&A post the break. So this will be our last question, and then we'll do another quick Q&A post break, then another panel.
Oh, no. Another Q&A for this, or another panel?
Another panel,
Oh.
but there'll be more Q&A.
All right.
Why are you worried?
Hello, I'm Danielle from Cleveland, and my question is, how does Uphold not end up being the next central bank? Because what you've described sounds like all the other individuals need to pass through Uphold, and if we're trying to decentralize, what prevents you from just being another intermediary?
It's a great question. So one of the things that we're doing is we're part of an alliance. It's basically creating a proxy token that allows for sort of the distributed model of what we're doing. At the end of the day, we do believe that there needs to be some sort of a system that's keeping track of all of these different digital currencies and digital values and so forth, but it doesn't have to all be in one place. So we're actually a part of an alliance, and there's more that's going to be coming out about it, which would basically take what we've built, which is centralized, there's no doubt about it, and then works to distribute it.